You don't understand, Amara, he said. A man needs a son who will carry on my name, who will stand by me in my old age. Amara tried to reason with him. Our daughters are a blessing, Chima. They love you and they need you. They are our family. But Chima only shook his head, unwilling to see things her way. His heart was set on having a son, and nothing Amara said could change his mind. Amara lived a simple but content life in a small village surrounded by vast fields and tall trees that swayed the wind. Her home was modest. She and her husband Chima had built it together in the early days of their marriage. In those days, their hearts were filled with dreams and promises. Amara had envisioned a life filled with love, laughter, and the warmth of a happy family. Amara and Chima's love story was one of those rare tales that started with genuine affection. They had met at a village festival where Chima had been captivated by her gentle smile and calm nature. They courted briefly and soon got married, sharing high hopes for the future. For a while, everything seemed perfect. They laughed together, shared their hopes, and whispered sweet promises about the family they would build together. Months later, when Amara gave birth to their first child, Adora, their lives were filled with joy. Adora was a beautiful baby with round cheeks, bright eyes, and a cheerful spirit that lifted everyone around her. Amara adored her, pouring all her love into nurturing and caring for her little girl. She would sing lullabies to Adora, tell her stories of strong women and heroes, which made her smile. Chima too was happy, and he loved Adora with all his heart. He held her gently, marveling at her tiny fingers and delicate features. In those early days, he often said, "Our Adora will bring us joy for years to come." They were content, their small family filled with love and laughter. But as Adora grew, the voices from relatives and villagers grew louder, urging Chima to have a son to carry on his name. At first, Chima brushed off these remarks, confident in the happiness that his daughter brought him. But over time, the words took root in his mind, and his dreams began to shift towards the idea of having a son. When Amara became pregnant again, Chima was filled with excitement and anticipation. He spoke endlessly about his dreams of raising a son, a boy he would teach, one who would carry on his legacy. Amara noticed this change in him and silently hoped for a boy, not for herself but to ease the growing tension she sensed in Chima's heart. When Amara finally gave birth, it wasn't to a son, but to twin beautiful daughters, whom she named Nkem and Chinwe. For Amara, it was a moment of pure happiness. She felt twice as blessed, and when she looked at her twin girls, her heart swelled with love. She saw them as a gift, a symbol of her love and commitment to her family. But as she lay in the hospital bed, cradling her newborn daughters, she noticed Chima's expression. His face, which she had hoped would be filled with pride and happiness, was instead clouded with disappointment. He held the babies briefly, then handed them back to Amara without a word. The silence spoke louder than any words, filling Amara's heart with a deep unspoken sorrow. As the weeks passed, Chima's disappointment grew into resentment. He began spending more time outside the house, avoiding Amara and the girls. When he was home, his once cheerful demeanor had turned to cold silence. He rarely smiled at Adora, Nkem or Chinwe. When he spoke to Amara, it was only to express his frustration. "You don't understand, Amara," he said. "A man needs a son who will carry on my name, who will stand by me in my old age." Amara tried to reason with him. "Our daughters are a blessing, Chima. They love you and they need you. They are our family." But Chima only shook his head, unwilling to see things her way. His heart was set on having a son, and nothing Amara said could change his mind. The loving husband she once knew was slipping away, replaced by a man consumed by disappointment and bitterness. Despite Chima's growing resentment, Amara devoted herself to raising her daughters. She woke early each morning to prepare meals, wash clothes, and make sure her home was filled with warmth and love. She read stories to Adora, sang lullabies to the twins, and held them close every night, promising them that they were enough. "You are my treasures," she would whisper to them, stroking their small hands. "You are enough, just as you are." The girls filled Amara's days with purpose, their laughter echoing through her small home and brightening even the darkest moments. She found joy in their presence, seeing each of her daughters as a gift. Adora was curious and always asking questions, while Nkim and Chinwe shared a bond that warmed Amara's heart. They were her reason to keep going, her source of strength. But Chima's bitterness casted a shadow over their home. He distanced himself from Amara and the girls, retreating further into his disappointment. Amara knew that her husband's love for her was fading, replaced by an unfulfilled desire for a son. And though she tried to keep her daughters from feeling the strain, she knew they sensed it. In those moments of heartache, Amara would hold her daughters close and remind them, "You are enough for me. You are more than enough." The evening was quiet, with only the soft chirping crickets breaking the stillness. Amara had just put the twins to bed, humming a gentle lullaby as they drifted off. Adora too was stuck in, her curious eyes finally closed in a peaceful rest. Amara cherished these quiet moments, finding a rare sense of calm after the day's hard work. She was cleaning up the last of the dishes when she heard the door creak open. She turned to see Chima standing in the doorway, his face set in an expression she had come to dread. His shoulders were tense, his lips pressed into a thin line, and his gaze was distant and cold. Amara's heart sank, sensing that something was different tonight. The heaviness in his stare told her that he wasn't here to talk about the day or share a meal in silence, as they had done so many times before. This was something else, something really final. "Amara," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet filled with a hard resolve. He stood there, his gaze fixed on her, as if weighing his next words carefully. "Amara, I have made up my mind." Amara felt a chill run down her spine. She forced a weak smile, hoping to ease the tension in the room. "Chima, is everything alright? You can talk to me." But Chima didn't respond to her question. Instead, he looked away, his eyes scanning the small humble space they called home for years. "Amara," he began again, his voice low and almost detached. "I can't do this anymore. I can't stay here if you can't give me a son." The words hit Amara like a cold wave. Her heart pounded as she tried to process what he was saying. She had known of his disappointment, but seeing it grown over the years, she had never imagined it would come to this. "Chima, please, how do you know I can't give you a son when we can always try? We can still have more kids," she whispered, taking a step towards him. "Chima, we already have 3 beautiful daughters, and they are part of us. They are our family. We can still try again. We can have the 4th child and even the 5th child, but I want to give you a son. Please." Chima's face remained impassive, hardened by the resolve that had replaced the love she once saw in his eyes. "You don't understand, Amara. I need a son. I need someone who will carry my name. You've given me 3 daughters. There is no assurance that the 4th or the 5th would be a son. Maybe there is no son in your womb." Amara felt the sting of his words, the cold finality in his tone. He looked down, clenching her hands together as her voice shook. "But Chima, our love, our daughters, they are more than enough. You don't have to leave." Chima interrupted, his tone growing sharper. "No, Amara, I've tried to accept it, to convince myself that maybe this is enough, but it's really not. It will never be enough without a son. He turned away from her, his face showing no signs of the struggle that tore through Amara's heart. Desperation filled her as she took another step towards him. Chima, please, don't leave. Think of Adora, Nkem and Chinwe. They need their father, they need you. I need you too. We can walk through this. A family doesn't need to fall apart over something we can't manage. But Chima shook his head, already reaching for a bag he had packed earlier, as if he had planned this moment. I have made my decision, Amara. I cannot stay. I will go and find a way to have a son, even if it means leaving this behind. Amara felt the world crumble beneath her. She struggled to find the words to make him stay, to make him understand the love and life she had built together. Chima, our love was supposed to be stronger than this. Our love was supposed to be strong, Chima, she whispered, the pain evident in her voice. Chima's eyes flickered for a brief moment, but he quickly looked away, unwilling to let her see any hint of his hesitation. Goodbye, Amara, he said, his voice void of any warmth. And just like that, he turned and walked out, leaving her standing there, clutching her hands to her chest, as if trying to hold herself together. The sound of the door closing echoed in the room, sealing their fate with a cold finality. Amara sank to her knees, her body trembling as silent tears streamed down her face. She felt a void opened within her, a deep aching loss that words could not describe. Chima, her partner, the man with whom she shared dreams and promises, had abandoned her and their daughters over a son he had yet to meet. The bitterness of it filled her with despair, and for a moment, she let herself break. After a while, she stood wiping her tears, knowing that she had to be strong. She walked quietly into the children's room, where Adora, Nkem and Chinwe lay fast asleep, blissfully unaware of the changes that had just shattered their family. Sitting down beside them, she stroked Adora's hair, watching her daughter's peaceful face. She took Nkem's small hand and felt the warmth of Chinwe's breath as she slept beside her sister. Gathering them close, she whispered softly, her voice a mix of pain and fierce determination. I will always love you, my beautiful girls. We will be okay, even without him. I promise you that I will be here and I will give you all the love you will ever need. In that moment, as she held her daughters, Amara found a glimmer of strength amidst the devastation. She was no longer just a wife, but a mother who would protect her children fiercely, who would give them the love they deserved, even if their father had turned his back on them. With a heavy heart, she accepted that their family was now just her and her girls, but they would face the world together. The village had always been a quiet place, with people who mostly kept to themselves, but even here, she felt the subtle shift in the way people looked at her. Some with pity, others with judgment, but Amara kept her head high, determined to make a life for her family. To provide for her daughters, she began taking on any work she could find. She became a familiar face in the homes of her neighbors, where she cleaned, fetched water, washed clothes, and even helped in the fields during planting and harvest seasons. She worked with a fierce determination, often tilling the land with men who admired her resilience, but whispered about her misfortune. She ignored their words, her focus solely on her girls. As Amara adjusted to her new routine, Adora, her eldest, began to notice her mother's exhaustion. Adora had a perceptive nature, sensing that their lives had changed. She watched their mother leave early in the morning, her hands roughened and her face showing signs of weariness. Mama, I'll help you. I'll be strong, she would say, wrapping her small arms around Amara's waist in a comforting hug, trying to shield her mother from the weight of their hardship. Amara cherished this moment with Adora, her little girl who was already growing up too fast. She would stroke Adora's hair and smile, reassuring her, my darling, you are my strength. Just seeing you and your sisters give me all the courage that I need. Meanwhile, the twins Nkem and Chinwe were still too young to even understand anything, not to talk of the absence of their father. Sometimes, Adora would ask, Mama, where is Papa? When will he come back? Amara's heart would tighten at these questions. She didn't want to burden her children with the truth. Not yet. For now, she chose gentle, hopeful words. Papa is away, but we have each other, and that's enough, she would say with a smile, pulling them into a warm hug. Her words seemed to satisfy them, and they would skip away, giggling and playing with Adora in the small yard. Despite the difficulties, Amara found moments of peace in the simple joys her children brought. She found herself laughing at their playful antics, cherishing their laughter as a balm to her tired heart. She made their modest home as cheerful as possible, yet, as much as she tried to keep her spirits high, there were nights when the loneliness crept in. After the children had fallen asleep, Amara would sit by the dim glow of the oil lamp, her hands clasped tightly as she fought back the tears. The silence of the night reminded her of Chima's absence, of the love they once shared, and the dreams they had built together that now lay shattered. She missed the life they had envisioned, but she reminded herself that her daughters were her reason to keep going. She had to be strong for them. Word of Amara's resilience began to spread throughout the village. Women who saw her struggle admired her tenacity, and some would offer small help they could. Mama Nkechi, a widow from the village, would often bring over some food or help with the children while Amara worked. You are a strong woman, Amara, Mama Nkechi would say, her voice filled with respect. Don't let anyone make you feel less. Your daughters are lucky to have a mother just like you. Amara was grateful for such kindness, and she found strength in the support of these women who understood her pain. They had faced their own battles, their own heartbreaks, and together they formed a quiet bond, supporting each other in ways only they understood. But the struggles persisted. The income she earned was barely enough to cover their basic needs, and some days they had to stretch the little food they had. Yet Amara was determined to make sure her daughters never felt deprived. She would often skip her own meals to ensure that her girls had enough, quietly sacrificing without complaints. Life in the village had become a daily test of Amara's resilience. People whispered about Chima's departure, convinced that it was Amara's fault. She couldn't give him a son, they would say, shaking their heads with disapproval. No wonder he left. What good is a wife who can't bear a male child? These words sliced through Amara's heart like a knife, but she kept her head high, swallowing the hurt and pretending she didn't hear the cruel remarks. Her daughters needed her strength, and she wasn't going to let the bitterness of others break her spirit. Amara poured all her energy into her work and her daughters, trying to drown out the negativity. She would spend her days toiling in other people's homes, scrubbing floors, washing clothes, and doing any tasks she could find. One evening, as Amara sat outside her home after a long day, she noticed her friend Obiageli approaching. Obiageli was one of the few people who had remained supportive throughout Amara's ordeal. She had seen Amara's struggle and knew the weight she carried. Obiageli greeted her warmly. Amara, I see how hard you work. You are doing more than most women would do, raising those beautiful girls on your own. Amara managed a smile, a small smile, feeling a bit of weight lift. Thank you, Obiageli. Sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a battle every day. Obiageli placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Don't listen to them, Amara. You are doing a great job. Your daughters are a blessing and never a curse. Amara nodded, grateful for her friend's support. I know my girls are a gift, and I'll keep fighting for them no matter what. Obiageli sighed, glancing around to make sure no one was nearby. You know how people are in this village. They like to talk, especially when they don't understand. They will gossip and find fault in anything that don't fit their own narrow view of the world. Amara knew Obiageli was right. The people in their village clung to tradition, and to them, family was incomplete without a son to carry on the family name. They didn't understand the love she had for her daughters. Now, she saw each of them as a miracle. It hurt her that they judged her based on something so shallow, something she had no control over, something her husband was even responsible for. As they talked, a group of women passed by, casting judgmental glances at their direction. One of them, Mama Ugo, a notorious gossip, shook her head dramatically. She muttered loudly, enough for Amara to hear. Women these days can't even keep their husbands. She must have done something wrong for him to leave. Amara clenched her fist, but she kept her silence. She had learned that responding only gave the gossip more fuel. Instead, she focused her attention to Obiageli, grateful for her friend's presence. Obiageli glared back at the woman, her voice low. Ignore them, Amara. They don't know your heart. They don't know the love you have for your children. Later that evening, as Amara tucked her daughter into bed, she felt the weight of the village judgment pressing down on her. Adora, sensing her mother's sadness, reached out and held her hand. Mama, are you sad? Amara forced a smile. No, my darling, I'm just tired. But seeing you and your sisters make everything worth it. Adora's eyes sparkled with wisdom. Mama, one day I'll be big and strong, and I'll help you, and no one will make you sad again. Amara's heart swelled with pride, and she kissed her daughter's forehead. You already help me, Adora, every day just by being here, and you and your sisters are my strength. Years had gone by, and Amara had devoted herself wholeheartedly to raising her daughters. Chima started an entirely new chapter of his life. He had remarried a woman named Ijoma in a neighboring town. Ijoma was kind and gentle, and Chima saw in her the chance to finally fulfill the dreams he had once shared with Amara, a family, but this time with the son he had always longed for. When Ijoma announced her pregnancy, Chima's excitement was boundless. He believed that his life was finally complete, that this new beginning would fill the void he had felt since abandoning Amara and his daughters. As the months of Ijoma's pregnancy progressed, Chima's anticipation grew. He showered his new wife with care and made grand plans for their future. When the doctors confirmed that Ijoma was carrying a boy, Chima's pride and joy reached new heights. He boasted to his friends and neighbors about the son he was expecting, confident that this child would bring him the fulfillment he believed he had been missing. But as Ijoma's due date approached, Chima's happiness was tainted by a lingering sense of guilt. He would lie awake at night, thoughts of Amara and his daughters creeping into his mind. The memories of Adora's laughter and the sight of his twin girls, Nkem and Chinwe, haunted him. He tried to push these thoughts away, telling himself that he had made the right decision. But this new family was his true path. But deep down, he knew he had abandoned something precious in his pursuit of a son. On the day of the delivery, Chima was filled with nervous excitement, pacing outside the hospital room while waiting to meet his son. Hours passed, and the medical team worked tirelessly. But suddenly, there was a shift in the atmosphere. Nurses moved quickly, their faces drawn with worry. Chima's heart pounded as he watched them rushing in and out of the room. He wanted to ask what was happening, but fear kept him rooted to the spot. Finally, a doctor approached him, his face solemn. Mr. Chima, I'm afraid there were complications during the delivery. We did everything we could, but Ijoma and the baby didn't make it. The doctor's words hit Chima like a blow to the chest. The world around him spun as he struggled to comprehend the gravity of what happened. Ijoma, the gentle woman who had given him a second chance at a family, was gone, and the son he had longed for, the child he had sacrificed so much to have, had slipped through his fingers before he had even had the chance to hold him. Chima's knee buckled and he fell to the floor, his heart shattering under the weight of his loss. He thought of the family he had left behind, of Amara and his daughters. The realization washed over him like a bitter tide. He had abandoned his own flesh and blood. 3 innocent girls who had only wanted his love, all in his desperate quest for a son. Now that dream was gone, and he was left with nothing but regret. In the days that followed, Chima's grief consumed him. He shut himself away, unable to face the world, haunted by the choices he had made. His mind was filled with images of Amara and his daughters, memories he had tried so hard to bury. The laughter of Adora, the smiles of the twins, they were no longer distant memories, but vivid reminder of everything he had thrown away. One evening, as Chima sat alone, staring at the photograph of Ijoma, his heart heavy with sorrow, he realized he had spent so much of his life chasing an idea, a vision of what he thought he needed to feel complete. But in the process, he had lost the very people who could have brought him true happiness. The family he had once held was now a part of his past, a past he could never reclaim. Haunted by his losses, Chima made a decision. He needed to go back, to try and seek forgiveness from the family he abandoned. He knew it was a long shot, that Amara had every reason to turn him away, but he had to try at least. Chima walked slowly down the familiar path leading to Amara's house, his heart pounding with a mixture of regret and fear. Each step felt heavy, weighed down by the memories of the life he had left behind. He couldn't shake the image of Amara's face when the first met, full of love and warmth. Now he wondered if she would ever recognize him. This broken man, filled with remorse for the choices he had made. As he approached their modest home, Chima hesitated before raising his hands to knock on the door. For a brief moment, he considered turning back, leaving without facing the pain he had caused. But he knew he couldn't run any longer. He had to face the consequences of his actions, even if it meant facing Amara's anger. The door creaked open, and there stood Amara, her face a mixture of surprise and unreadable emotion as she took in the sight of him. Time had changed her. There was a strength in her eyes that hadn't been there before, a resilience that came from years of struggle and sacrifice. She looked at him, her expression hardened, and waited for him to speak. "Amara," he began, his voice shaky. "I know I don't deserve to be here. I know I have hurt you and the girls in ways that I can never take back. But please, please just hear me out, even if it's once." Amara's face remained still, her eyes piercing into him, but she didn't say a word. "I was foolish, Amara. I left because I thought I needed a son to complete our family. I thought it would make me feel whole, but I was wrong. I gave up everything for a dream that vanished the day I lost Ijoma and the child I thought I wanted so desperately." Amara's lips pressed into a thin line as she listened, her expression unwavering. "And now that they are gone, you think you can come back? You think you can walk in here and ask for forgiveness?" Her tone was calm, but the coldness in her voice cut through him like a knife. Chima swallowed hard. "Amara, please, I know it sounds selfish. I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I know I have no right to ask. But I have come to understand how much I lost the day I left. I've missed out on so much, watching our daughters grow, being there for you. I was blinded by my own foolishness." Amara took a deep breath. "If your wife and son were still here, you wouldn't be standing at this door, would you?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with bitterness. "You are here now, Chima, not because you want us, but because you have nowhere else to go. I raised our daughters alone, and I don't need you now." Chima's shoulders slumped as he absorbed her words. Deep down, he knew she was right. His return was born from his own broken dreams. He couldn't deny that the loss of Ijoma and his son had driven him back to the family he had once abandoned. He had hoped Amara might understand, that she would see the remorse in his heart, but he realized now that he had hurt her too deeply for forgiveness to come easily. Amara looked at him, her expression unreadable. She crossed her arms. "For the girl's sake, I will allow you to visit, but don't expect more than that, Chima. I won't pretend that everything is fine or that I have forgiven you. I can't just forget the years of struggle, the loneliness, the night I stayed up wondering how I would raise them on my own." Chima nodded slowly, understanding the boundaries she was setting. He knew he had no right to ask for more. He had lost his place in their lives, and he would have to live with that knowledge. "Thank you, Amara. I don't deserve even this chance, but I am very grateful." She stepped back, giving him a clear indication that their conversation was over. You may come on Saturdays to see them, she said curtly, but remember, Chima, this is for them, not for you. With that, she closed the door, leaving him standing alone in the doorstep, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. As he turned to leave, he felt a strange mixture of relief and sorrow. He had been given a small chance to reconnect with his daughters, but the distance between him and Amara felt like an unbridgeable chasm. Inside, Amara leaned against the closed door, her heart pounding. She knew she had made the right decision by setting boundaries, yet a part of her felt a deep sadness. Chima's return had stirred old wounds, but she couldn't allow herself to dwell on them. She had moved on, learned to be strong for her daughters, and built a life that didn't include him. Now, her focus was on keeping that strength, ensuring that Chima's return didn't disrupt the peace she had worked so hard to create. Life continued smoothly for Amara as she focused on building a stable, happy environment for her daughters. With Chima's visit limited to occasional Saturdays, she felt a sense of relief, knowing she was in control of her daughters' lives and the world they grew up in. She had worked hard to provide for her family, and her resilience began to pay off. Adora, now older and more responsible, often took on the role of a second mother to her younger sisters Nkem and Chinwe, who were full of life and curiosity. The twins admired their older sister, imitating her every move, which Adora found both amusing and exhausting. She helped her mother with the household chores, fetched water from the nearby well, and even learned how to cook simple meals. Amara often marveled at her daughter's strength and maturity, grateful for the support she provided in raising the twins. One warm afternoon, as Amara was finishing up her errands in the bustling village market, she met a man named Ikenna. He had a calm, gentle demeanor, a kindness in his eyes that instantly made her feel comfortable. Ikenna was a trader who frequently came to the village to sell and buy goods. As they exchanged polite greetings, they found themselves lost in conversations about the struggles and joys of the village life. Over time, Ikenna became a familiar presence in Amara's life. He would often stop by her house with fresh vegetables or fruit from his farm, and he would sit with her on the porch, talking about everything from village gossip to future dreams. Unlike the others, he never pried into her past or judged her for being a single mother. Instead, he admired her strength and determination, seeing her as a woman who had endured hardship and still managed to raise three wonderful daughters. Ikenna's presence brought a sense of calm into Amara's life. He would play with Adora, Nkem and Chinwe whenever he visited, treating them with warmth and affection. The girls quickly grew fond of him, enjoying his stories, games, and small gifts that made their eyes light up. To the twins, Ikenna was like the father they have never known, while Adora saw him as a caring friend who brought laughter and light into their home. One evening, after a particularly joyful afternoon with the girls, Ikenna took Amara aside. His voice was soft, but his words were filled with sincerity. "Amara," he began, "I love you and the girls, and I want to be part of your lives, to share in your joys and support you through your struggles. Please, will you marry me?" Amara's heart raced, a mixture of excitement and hesitation filling her mind. She had grown to trust and care for Ikenna, but the thought of marriage brought back memories of her past with Chima. She worried about how her daughters would react to having a new father figure, and if Ikenna could truly accept her family as his own. Seeing her concern, Ikenna looked at her. "Amara, I know your heart carries scars, and I respect everything you've been through. But please, know that I want to build a life with you and the girls. They are a part of you, and that makes them a part of me too. I promise to love and protect all of you." Tears filled Amara's eyes as she realized that Ikenna's love was genuine and unconditional. In that moment, she knew he was different, a man who truly valued her and the life she had built with her daughters. With a grateful heart, she nodded, accepting his proposal and embracing the hope that lay ahead. Amara and Ikena's wedding was a simple but beautiful ceremony. Close friends and family gathered to witness the union, their smiles and blessings filling the air with joy and warmth. Amara wore a modest but lovely dress, her face glowing with happiness as she stood beside Ikenna. Adora, Nkem and Chinwe were thrilled, dressed in bright, cheerful outfits that made them look like flowers in bloom. The girls adored Ikenna, and the bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Ikenna took the time to get to know each of them, understanding their unique personalities and making them feel valued. He would teach Adora about fishing and farming, showing her small tricks to help her feel more independent. With Nkem and Chinwe, he would play games, tell stories, and let them braid his hair, laughing as they giggled and created little twists and knots. For Amara, this marriage was unlike anything she had ever known. Ikenna didn't see her daughters as a burden or an obstacle. Instead, he welcomed them with open arms, loving them as his own. He would spend evenings with the family, sharing meals and laughters, creating a home filled with warmth and love. Amara often marveled at the peace that had settled in her life, a peace she hadn't known in years. One evening, as they sat together under the starlight sky, Ikenna held Amara's hands and said, "Thank you, Amara, for allowing me into your life. Being with you and the girls is a blessing I cherish every day." Amara smiled. "Thank you for loving us, Ikenna. You have given us a happiness I never thought we would find." With Ikenna by her side, Amara found a renewed strength and joy. She was no longer carrying the weight of her struggles alone. She had a partner who supported her and a family that brought her peace. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream of a future filled with love, security, and the warmth of a complete family. Months after their marriage, Amara began to feel the familiar signs of pregnancy: morning sickness, fatigue, and an odd craving for the smell of fresh wood from Ikenna's workshop. At first, she thought it was the result of her busy days, juggling motherhood and managing her small business. But as the days went on, she became sure, with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She shared the news with Ikenna. The joy in Ikenna's eyes were immediate and overwhelming. He embraced Amara, lifting her off her feet as he whispered, "This is a blessing, Amara, another chapter for our beautiful family." They decided to keep the news to themselves for a little while, savoring the secret happiness before sharing it with others. As her pregnancy progressed, the day finally came for them to visit the clinic for a routine checkup and a scan. When the nurse revealed it was a boy, Amara felt a bittersweet surge of emotion. She knew Ikenna would have been just as overjoyed with a daughter. But the prospect of having a son added a layer of healing to her heart, a closure she hadn't realized that she needed. That evening, as they sat with the girls and shared the news, the joy was infectious. Adora clapped her hands, already eager to help with their new sibling. Nkem and Chinwe danced around, calling out, "We will teach him all the games. He will be our best friend." Their laughter echoed through the house, filling every corner with warmth and anticipation. A few weeks later, during one of Chima's brief visits to see his daughter, Amara decided to share the news with him. She wanted him to know, not out of spite, but as a way of letting go. When she mentioned the pregnancy and the baby boy on the way, Chima's face fell, his eyes reflecting a mix of regret and disbelief. The realization struck him hard. Amara had rebuilt her life and had been blessed with the very child he had left her to pursue. "Amara," he began softly. There was nothing he could say that could bridge the gap that he had created. The life he had abandoned and grown without, blossoming into something beautiful and complete. Amara looked at him, her gaze filled with a quiet strength. "I didn't need a son to be complete, Chima," she said. "I had my daughters and I have Ikenna. This child is a blessing, but he doesn't define my worth or my family." Chima nodded, unable to respond. He realized he had lost something irreplaceable, not because of circumstances, but because of his own choices. For the first time, he saw clearly the life he had missed out on, a life filled with love, resilience, and joy. But he knew he was a spectator now, standing outside the family Amara had built without him. Months passed, and Amara gave birth to a healthy baby boy on a calm, breezy morning. She and Ikenna named him Chibuke, meaning God is my strength, a name that reflected the journey they had taken and the blessings they had received. The entire family celebrated his arrival, and the house was filled with laughter, joyful cries, and tender cooes of newborn. Adora, ever the responsible elder sister, quickly took it upon herself to care for her baby brother. She learned how to soothe him, rock him to sleep, and would often sit beside his cradle, humming lullabies she had heard her mother sing. Nkem and Chinwe were eager to be involved. They would gently touch his tiny hands and feet, giggling in wonder. Mama, he's so little. Look at his fingers. Life settled into a happy rhythm as Amara and Ikenna embraced this new chapter with their children. Amara watched with contentment as her daughters doted on Chibuke, and she marveled at how much love filled her home. Ikenna was a hands-on father, always ready to help with late-night feedings, diaper changes, and endless hours of baby giggles. For Amara, this sense of peace and fulfillment was all she had ever dreamt of, and it went beyond anything she could have imagined. Chima continued to visit his daughters, but it was clear to everyone that he was a visitor, a figure from a life that no longer existed. In time, Amara found herself completely at peace with her past. She cherished her journey and the strength she had gained from her struggles. The life she had built was rich and filled with love, and she knew she had been blessed in ways that could never be measured by traditional standard. As she sat one evening watching her daughters play with their baby brother, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The laughter, the love, the warmth, they were a family not because of any societal label or expectation, but because of the bond they shared, the resilience they had cultivated, and the love that held them together. Amara had learned that family was not defined by one's ability to fulfill someone else's dream, but by the ability to nurture and cherish the people who stood by her through everything. She had created a family filled with joy, strength, and love, a family that embraced each other for who they were and supported each other through every trial and triumph. As she looked around her daughters and her son, with Ikenna by her side, Amara knew that her journey had been worthwhile. The life she had built was her own, a testament to her strength, her love, and her belief that she and her children were enough, more than enough. And in that knowledge, she found a peace that would stay with her always, a peace that allowed her to face the future with hope and a heart full of love. The story teaches a very simple but unique lesson that family was not defined by one's ability to fulfill someone else's dream, but by the ability to nurture and cherish the people who stands by you through thick and thin. Thank you so much for watching this fantastic story on African Stories by Tiana. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing stories. See you next time.